Hey, what's going on there, guys? We are back with another video, and today I'm going to try and show y'all how to do a cruise control delete, but it's going to be the freeway, which also means that it's kind of going to be the wrong way. But what you're going to do is you're going to come in here. See this right here? This is where your throttle cable is going to end up at. What we're going to do is detach this particular one, this throttle cable, and we're going to remove it from this here loop. We're going to do a little bit of bend on the cable right there. Try and loop it around. After pulling the original cable out of that slot, we're going to try and pop it in there and fasten it down and loop it in right here. So it should work. I've seen it done in the forums. Worst case scenario, since I'm not going to be mangling anything, if it doesn't work, I can just put it back together and then give y'all an update on that. All right, so I've already pulled out the bracket. Got a little bit ahead of myself because I was getting owned by this cable, but so the bracket's out, so is the cable, and so is the short cable. There was a 10 up here on the top, one down here underneath this cable, right there, and then one on the left side, also underneath that cable right there where my finger is. So I'm already done, and I will just say that does not look ideal. It's a little bit sketchy, so I'll be careful for that because it seemed a bit small. But basically what I did, after I took the short cable out of that box, that little actuator, I took the throttle cable off from the firewall right in there. It's really not easy to see. I can't really get a good look on you, but there's two bolts right in there. You can just barely see them right under this. One up there, one down there. I took those two bolts, I loosened them, and then I flipped the cable around. That way it's facing the opposite direction. And then basically looped it, or turned it around, and pulled it through. Now, it will be a little bit loose if you just leave it like that, though. So what I did, there's a thing that's supposed to cut out radio noise on the back, the intake manifold right here on the back. I took that bolt out, and I looped a zip tie around it through there. That way it wouldn't pull or loosen, because if that happens, your throttle is not going to come back. It'll just pin to the ground, so that's not good. And then I fastened another zip tie through this bolt hole, because you don't really need that bracket if you do it this way. You can do it with the bracket, but I did it without. But then I fastened it down with this zip tie. And now we have a cable or a throttle that goes all the way to the floor and comes back up. So now, see, there's no extra there. So what I will do is I will start it and I'll let it idle. See how the idle is, just to make sure that it's not keeping the throttle body open. And then that should be it. All right, so don't mind the check engine light, but we are driving and it is totally functional. Now I'm going around in my neighborhood, but I can tell you that so far it does work. Now it's a little bit more sensitive than it was. The throttle's it's not as dead, you know, there's less in the, there's less to the system, but it seems to work just fine. So good news there. I'll get to the, yeah, it just feels a little bit more jumpy. So I'll get to the house and I'll show off everything again, just to have y'all be able to see it. All right, so to start, after removing the box and also the actuator, which I've already done, but after removing the box and settling it, I thought this little, I don't know what to call that, actually, that little pin thing or whatever that that's on the end of the throttle cable. I thought that it seemed a little bit loose. You can stuff a zip tie in there to kind of help it sit still, and that will not affect drivability at all. But then to kind of show around the back, I got it looped without a bracket, but I have it fastened by a zip tie there through that bolt hole. Move that to there. As long as that's grounded, you should be fine. And loop it around the back. Like I said, that sound, that excess noise thing for the radio. I fastened it off of that, but not too tight, because if you pull it too tight, it will keep the throttle open. Just needs to be held in place. And then deep back in there, the main thing is that it's really hard to see, but there's 2 bolts back there against the firewall that the throttle cable bolts into. I unbolted it and I flipped it around so it's facing the opposite direction. Bent it a little bit downwards from that point. That way it's underneath all of these solenoids. And then, yeah, we looped it. And from the drive, it felt fine. The throttle was a lot more jumpy, a lot more excitable, way more reactive. So that's good. But that should complete the video. Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention the tools you'll need. You'll actually need 2 12s to be able to undo this right here, that nut on the other one, to pull it out of that box. You'll need 10s to remove the actual box and 10s to remove that. You're gonna want a pair of dikes so you can cut the zip ties. And I use zip ties. If you guys have any better ways to fasten it, I would recommend doing it, but zip ties should work just fine. All right, thank y'all for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.